Okay, I just got confirmation that the live feed has started. So plaintiff is ready to make an opening statement.
The plaintiff is ready, Your Honor.
You may proceed when ready, and timekeeper, this is when you start.
Good afternoon, counsel, Your Honor, and members of the jury. My name is Madeline Malens, and today I represent the plaintiff, Dakota Weirs. Profits over people. Members of the jury, this case is about a company who put their profits first, in front of their employees, safety regulations, and most importantly, Dakota Weirs' life. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you for a moment to put yourself in the shoes of Dakota Weirs, a young woman with her whole life ahead of her. She had an acceptance to Juilliard, a promising musical career, and a job that she loved. Now, put yourself in her shoes again when she tells you that she was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma, effectively ending her life as she knew it. She will describe for you how she can no longer play the piano, a favorite pastime that brought her closer to her grandfather. Ms. Weirs will tell you that she can no longer chase her dreams at Juilliard or volunteer or even work anymore. And why? Why was Dakota Weirs' life permanently altered? Because Lush Fertilizer puts profits over people. The plaintiff has the burden of proving by a preponderance of the evidence that Lush Fertilizer's negligence is responsible for Ms. Weirs' cancer. This is a burden we gladly accept. First, we will show that the defendant, Lush Fertilizer in this case, manufactured a fertilizer product containing a chemical known as Drufo. This is not in dispute. You will hear from many witnesses today, both from the defense and the plaintiff, who will all say that this is true. Lush manufactured a fertilizer product containing Drufo. Second, the testimony will show that Lush was negligent by failing to exercise reasonable care to prevent the product from creating an unreasonable risk of harm. You will hear from Carson Durst, a former Lush employee that was crucial in the development of Drufo. He will testify that Lush knew that Drufo could cause cancer in its non-baked form. You will also hear testimony from Lush's own CEO, Blake Doncourt, that they were aware that Drufo posed a risk to consumers like Ms. Weirs, but they still chose not to bake it. Even though, as they will testify today, baking Drufo would only increase the cost by 1%. Yes, only 1 penny for every dollar. Third, you will hear evidence that Ms. Weirs was one of the people Lush should have expected to use this product. Ms. Weirs herself will testify to this. She worked as a landscaper at Haven Landscaping and used a fertilizer manufactured by Lush that contained Drufo. Finally, the evidence will show that Ms. Weirs had damages that were caused by Lush's negligence while the product was being used in a manner that Lush should have reasonably expected. To prove this, you will hear testimony from Dr. Rogers that there is, in fact, a link between Drufo and cancer. You will also hear that Ms. Weirs has a twin and that the only aspect of their lives that's different is that Dakota Weirs worked as a landscaper where she was exposed to Drufo, whereas Skylar Weirs did not. The plaintiff will prove its case by a preponderance of the evidence, after which you must consider the defense's affirmative negligence claim, which is that Ms. Weirs failed to do something that reasonably careful people would do to protect themselves from the claimed danger created by the product, and that this negligence caused Ms. Weirs' cancer. The defense will say that Drufo's label contained a caution statement and safety recommendations, yet these so-called warnings only reference eye irritation, not the fact that the primary active ingredient in the fertilizer was a known carcinogen. Members of the jury, Ms. Weirs does not have eye irritation. She has cancer. And while nothing can reverse this, it is time that Lush pays for their actions and stops putting profits over people. That's why, members of the jury, the plaintiff asks that you find in favor of Ms. Weirs and against Lush Fertilizer. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. We have an opening statement from the defense.
May it please the court, Your Honor, the opposing counsel, and members of the jury. Show me a hero and I'll write you a tragedy. Good evening. My name is Gavin Almoody, along with my co-counsel, Julie Valenzuela and Malia Peters. We represent Lush Fertilizer in today's case. We are here to demonstrate that our client, Lush Fertilizer, was not negligent in the production and distribution of its fertilizer. Today, you'll hear about a compound from Lush Fertilizer called Drufo. Drufo is a revolution in the field of agriculture. It is not only cost-effective for the consumer, but beneficial to the environment. Drufo helps control the amount of nitrogen buildup and runoff into rivers and streams. Users only have to apply Drufo once or twice a year, compared to 5 or 6 times for its competitors. This means less nitrogen to rise in crops. Drufo makes the world a better place. Drufo is the hero. Now, some people disagree. Others want to keep this product off the shelf. The plaintiff today will represent their case and try to convince you that this product is not safe and in fact harmful. Today, you will hear from the efforts of Lush's competitors who have spent billions of dollars to destroy the reputation of Drufo. These competitors want to turn Drufo into a tragedy. Now, members of the jury, why are you here today? Standing before you is the plaintiff, Dakota Weirs. The plaintiff will allege that the use of Lush Fertilizer was the cause of their terrible condition and the diagnosis of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. But I want you to pay attention to the details in today's case. You will hear that Dakota Weirs was suffering from their condition for over a year. And it wasn't until after watching the news one day did they start to believe Lush Fertilizer was the cause. Remember what I mentioned earlier? Lush's competitors spent billions of dollars to destroy the reputation of Drufo. These efforts are being poured into screens across the country. These efforts are the reason why we are here today. Members of the jury, in the evidence in today's case, will show that this product is completely safe. It does not cause cancer. It is meant to benefit you, the consumer, and the environment. To help you with this, to help you reach this understanding, defense will call 3 witnesses. First, defense will call Dr. Williams, Dr. Devin Williams. Dr. Williams is an expert in the fields of pharmacotoxicology, with both training and experience in the relevant fields of today's case. The witness will help you understand what Drufo is, why Drufo is a revolution in the industry, and how safe Drufo is as a component to Lush's fertilizer. Dr. Williams will help you see that Drufo is a hero in today's industry. Next, the defense will call Skylar Weirs. Mr. Weirs is an investigative journalist specializing in the field of agricultural technology. Mr. Weirs has spent hours researching, questioning, and understanding just how Drufo works and what it can do for the user and the consumer. Mr. Weirs will shed light on the state of the most current research and address Drufo's safety concerns. Mr. Weirs will also help you reach an understanding just of how the old guard of agricultural industry are attempting to destroy the reputation of Lush's fertilizer. We will help you see that their attempts to turn Drufo into a tragedy. Finally, you'll hear from the CEO of Lush Fertilizer herself, Blake Doncourt. Ms. Doncourt did not have to take the stand today, but she chose to because she believes in this complete transparency. She will let you know that Lush Fertilizer is a company committed to great environmental and safety practices. Her contributions to the product, the company, and the planet will help you realize that Lush did not contribute to the plaintiff's condition. At the conclusion of this case, we will ask you to find that the plaintiff has not met her burden of proof that Lush Fertilizer is either dangerous or caused Dakota Weirs cancer. The plaintiff has failed to eliminate a major priority of the variables that could be responsible for her or his cancer. As you'll see, Drufo's the hero, and this is the attempt at tragedy. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Is the plaintiff prepared to call their first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff
All right.
called Dakota Weirs to the stand.
All right. Do we have defense counsel who will be doing the cross-examination?
I will be doing the cross-examination of Dakota Weirs.
All right. Ms. Weirs, you were sworn in earlier. You understand that? All right. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. Would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Yes, my name is Dakota Weirs.
Ms. Weirs, will you explain for the jury why you brought a civil action against Lush Fertilizer?
Of course, I'm here today because I was diagnosed with cancer, and I believe that it was caused by using Lush fertilizer, which contains Drufo.
What kind of cancer do you have?
I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
How has that affected your life on a day-to-day basis?
Gosh, affected is an understatement. Having cancer has ruined my life in so many ways.
Before you got sick, tell me what your life was like.
My life was so amazing before I got sick. I really lived it to the fullest. I would volunteer. I had a job at Haven Landscaping. I worked really, really hard in school, and I was a part of National Honor Society. And of course, the most important part of my life was playing piano. I even got a scholarship to Juilliard, my dream school.
Why was playing piano the most important part of your life?
Playing piano was a way that I connected to my grandfather. He was the one who introduced me to piano, and unfortunately, he passed away not too long ago. And playing piano was something that made me feel like he was still there.
What are your plans for the future?
Well, like I said, I got a scholarship to Juilliard, so that was my plan. And I was so excited to play piano and follow my grandfather's footsteps. But little did I know that possibly means following him to the grave.
What do you mean this was your plan?
Well, now that I'm so sick, I can't play piano anymore because, well, cancer. And after my grandfather died, this was really the only thing that connected me to him, like I said. And now it just feels like my life is truly, truly over. And this is just one of the many things that cancer has taken away from me.
What else has cancer taken away from you?
Like I said, I can't do any of the things that I used to love. I used to love volunteering and taking care of people, but now it just always seems like I'm the one being taken care of.
I'm sorry to hear that. Now let's talk about your family. Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have a twin, Skylar.
Growing up, how did your life differ from your twin Skylar's life?
Skylar and I were typical twins, practically attached at the hip. We did everything the same, except because Skylar is allergic to grass, I got a job at Haven Landscaping when I was 14, and Skylar did not.
Was working at Haven Landscaping the only difference between you and Skylar?
Yeah,
What was your relationship like with Skylar?
it was great. Like I said, we were typical twins, best friends, you could say. That was until I got sick, and our relationship really started to plateau.
What do you mean your relationship started to plateau?
We aren't as close anymore. After I got sick, I obviously had so many medical bills, and that put such a burden on my family. And Skylar, because of this, developed a gambling problem.
Now, will you explain a little about what you did working at Haven Landscaping?
Of course, my technical title was a landscaping technician. I would help people with their lawns, fertilize them, but the really only life-altering part of that job was working with Drufo.
What do you mean by life-altering?
If I hadn't have had that job and I hadn't have worked with Lush Fertilizer, then none of this would have happened. We wouldn't even be here today, and I would still be able to play piano, of course.
When did you stop working there?
I worked there all of high school, but I ultimately had to stop when I got sick.
Now, please refer to Exhibit 1. What is Exhibit 1?
Exhibit 1 is the label on the Lush Fertilizer that I used at my job.
How often did you use Lush Fertilizer?
Like I said, I worked there all of high school, and I worked with a ton of lawns, so I worked with Lush a pretty decent amount.
So how many times did you see this label?
I saw it every time I used the fertilizer, so also a pretty decent amount.
Where did this exhibit come from?
My boss sent it to me, or my old boss.
Is this a true and accurate copy of the label you saw on the Lush Fertilizer?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I move to admit Exhibit 1 into evidence.
Any objections from the defense?
Objection on heresy.
Any response?
Your Honor, this is not hearsay under Rule 801, as it is not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted.
If it is not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted, then I'll agree that's not hearsay and I'll admit it, but I caution you to not use it for that matter.
Thank you, Your Honor. Permission to publish Exhibit 1 to the jury?
Yes, per the pretrial stipulation, you may publish without request.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Weirs, did anything on this label concern you?
I mean, no, not at all. I honestly didn't really think anything of it because the only hazard you could say on the label is eye irritation. And the safety recommendations didn't really have any sense of urgency.
Did it indicate that the product may cause cancer?
No, nothing on here indicates that it's going to get cancer from it.
So why didn't this label give you concern?
I mean, when you buy a pack of cigarettes, for example, there's a pretty clear warning that smoking could give you lung cancer, and you know to be cautious. But when you look at this label that was on Lush fertilizer, all it says is warning may cause eye irritation. Eye irritation is not the same as non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Could you please read what it says under the user safety recommendations in Exhibit 1?
Yes. As with any spray fertilizer, utilize protective clothing that covers exposed skin. Use of a respirator or N95 mask is recommended.
Did you wear any protective clothing such as long pants or a long sleeve shirt or even a mask?
No, I did not. I didn't really see a reason to.
Why didn't you wear protective clothing?
I mean, had I known that the real danger was going to ruin my life and possibly kill me, of course I would have followed the recommendation. But according to the label, the only danger is eye irritation. How is wearing long pants supposed to protect me from eye irritation? Why should I have to wear a mask to protect my eyes?
Finally, will you explain what you want out of this trial?
Of course. I want to prove that working with Lush fertilizer made me sick. My grandfather died. And when I got cancer, my dreams of playing the piano died. I want to be able to speak up while I still can.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions, and I pass this witness for cross-examination.
Thank you, counsel. Defense counsel, cross-examination.
Good evening, Ms. Mears. My name is Gavin Almoody, and I'll be cross-examining you this evening. Let us begin with your work at Haven. You were an employee with Haven since you were 14, correct?
Yes,
And you have been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, correct?
I have.
So you believe Lush is the sole cause, correct?
I do. I believe that because Lush has Drufo in it, I got non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
You only, and only after seeing the article, news article, you believe that Lush fertilizer was responsible, correct?
I mean, yeah, once I found out that it had Drufo in it, everything made sense.
Now, Ms. Weirs, Haven Landscaping used a number of fertilizers, correct?
Yeah, we used a ton of different fertilizers.
And
However,
lawn chemicals?
The only one with Drufo was Lush.
Haven Landscaping stopped using Lush fertilizer on your third or fourth year on the jobs.
I would say so. I only worked there for 4 to 5 years, so I used it for the majority of my time there.
But that still would have meant the last time you used Lush fertilizer was when you were 17.
I mean, I guess so.
Mr. Weirs, your company told you to wear protective equipment, correct?
Yes, they did.
Did you wear gloves?
I mean, I was 14 years old. How can you expect a freshman in high school to do
I
something
guess it will be
to
fine.
change their life? Sorry?
A yes or no will be fine.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Did you wear gloves?
No, I didn't.
Did you wear long sleeves?
No, nobody did.
Did you wear pants?
It was so hot. How could I wear pants in the summer?
Did you wear a mask?
No, I didn't.
No further questions.
Thank you, counsel. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Miss Weirs, is there a reason you did not wear protective clothing?
Yes, there is a reason. If you look at the label on Lush fertilizer, the only danger is eye irritation. Had I known that the real danger was going to give me cancer, I would have worn the protective clothing.
Thank you. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Thank you, counsel. Thank you, Ms. Weirs. This plaintiff wish to call another witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff calls Carson Durst to the stand.
Mr. Durst, does defense have attorney to cross-examine Mr. Durst?
Yes, I'll be cross-examining Carson Durst.
Thank you. All right. Counsel, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good evening, Mr. Durst. Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Hello, my name is Carson Durst.
Did you ever work at Lush?
Yeah, I did.
When were you an employee there?
From 2003 to 2006.
I would like, excuse me, I would like to talk about your time at Lush. What did you do there?
I was originally hired as an intern for the R&D team, and then after about 3 months, I was promoted to a full-time position as a product development engineer.
What was your biggest project while at Lush?
Definitely working on Drufo.
And where was the company at with the development of Drufo when you joined?
When I joined in 2003, we were in the process of testing the safety of the bonding agents.
And what was your specific involvement in this process?
I was tasked with researching one of the specific chemical compounds that comprise Drufo.
I would now like to talk about your research more specifically. What did it involve?
Well, while I was conducting my research, I came across a study from England, which concluded that the particular chemical compound I was looking into could be carcinogenic in rats.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that I am asking opposing counsel and the witness to look at a copy of Exhibit 3. Mr. Durst, do you recognize this exhibit?
Yeah.
What is this exhibit?
This is the study I was just talking about.
And who created this exhibit?
I guess whoever conducted the study in England.
Is this a fair and accurate copy of the study you previously mentioned?
Yeah, as far as I can tell.
Your Honor, at this time, I move for Exhibit 3 to be entered into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Given there's no objection, Exhibit 3 will be entered.
Thank you. Mr. Durst, can you please read the line under results in this exhibit?
Yeah. Our results show a statistically significant dose-related increase of malignant tumor-bearing animals, particularly in the group treated with 2,000 parts per million of C3N09P, an increase in incidence of leukemias and lymphomas in animals treated with this compound.
Can you explain what this means, simply speaking?
Simply speaking, this means that animals exposed to this compound were more likely to develop cancer than those that were not.
Who did you tell about the research found in this exhibit?
Well, normally once everyone's analysis has been reviewed, we give it to Jerry, who's our product manager.
And how did Lush respond when you alerted them to the results of this study?
I don't know exactly how they responded to hearing this research. What I do know is that a few months later, we found out that Lush would be conducting its own in-house study about whether Drufo could be carcinogenic.
And how are you instructed to do this study?
We received an email from Jerry.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that I am asking opposing counsel and the witness to look at a copy of Exhibit 4. Mr. Durst, Thank you. Mr. Durst, do you recognize this exhibit?
Yes, I do.
What is this exhibit?
This is the email that I was just talking about.
And how are you made aware of this exhibit?
I received it in my work email.
And who sent you this email?
Jerry Langley, our product manager.
And is this a fair and accurate copy of the email you previously mentioned?
As far as I can tell, yeah.
At this time, I move for Exhibit 4 to be entered into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
It will be admitted without objection.
Thank you. Mr. Durst, can you please read the first line from the second paragraph, starting with following our labs through the end of that sentence?
Following our lab's June Drufo study, concerns have arisen regarding generalized findings of potential carcinogenic qualities identified in samples produced during a period earlier in the year.
So to clarify, this email expressed concerns about Drufo having carcinogenic qualities.
Yes, it did.
And were you the only person to receive this email?
No, as you can see, the recipients list is about 20 people. I don't know everyone who received it. I do know that Blake Doncourt is on that list.
And who is Blake Doncourt?
He's the CEO of Lush.
Was there anything else notable in this email?
Not in the email necessarily, but during weekly meetings, I got the impression that there was certain pressure from management for the internal studies to be conducted and read a certain way.
And what did this pressure from management feel like?
I felt as though we were being encouraged to conduct the studies in such a way that would give Lush wiggle room in case of a lawsuit such as this, sort of to bury the causal link.
And what was your understanding of the conclusion management wanted?
Like I said, I think that they wanted us to bury the causal link so that Lush could not be held accountable for the carcinogenic qualities of Drufo.
Now I would like to talk more about the actual study that Lush performed. How did management handle the results of this in-house study?
Well, in December of 2003, Jerry gathered us all in a conference room to discuss the findings. And I remember Alex Monroe was there, who's an upper echelon manager, which I remember being a little weird. Yeah.
What was discussed in this meeting?
Well, during the meeting, one scientist brought up concerns that not only may Drufo be carcinogenic, but that it might be directly linked to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
And what was the reaction from the company as a result of this?
The upper echelon manager, Alex Monroe, said something to the tune of, let's keep this in the walls until we figure out what we're doing. And then a month or so later, a copy of the final report hit my desk.
And what did this final report conclude?
It concluded that on average, further research was needed in order to make any conclusions about the link between Drufo and cancer.
And was there anything missing from the report to your knowledge?
Well, I don't have access to all the research that was conducted by the whole R&D team, but based on my personal hand in the study, I felt as though the study was pretty misleading and that a lot of info was left out.
Lastly, did this report make any safety recommendations?
Yeah, it suggested that Drufo should be baked to eliminate any safety risks.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions at this time.
Thank you, counsel. Cross-examination.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Durst. My name is Julie Valenzuela, and I will be asking you a few questions today. Please try to keep your questions to yes or no. You are the lead product developer for Terra's Greenery, correct?
I'm not the lead product developer, but I was, Terra's Greenery, my bad. Yes, I am.
You have worked at Terra since 2006, correct?
Yeah, I have.
But before you started at Terra's, you were working at Lush Fertilizer, correct?
Yeah, I was pretty lucky to be able to get a job there right out of college.
You were very close with the Doncourts, correct?
Yeah, I was. Charles was one of my best friends growing up.
The Doncourts were like the family you've never had, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I felt really close to them.
And when you graduated from college, you were not at the top of your class, correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, college is so competitive these days and there's just so many smart people. So no, I wasn't. But, I considered myself pretty capable.
Yet, Lush Fertilizer hired you right out of college?
Well, yeah, I mean, I had just received my degree in chemical engineering. So yeah.
So you started to work as an intern with the research and development team, right?
Yes, I did.
You got promoted to a full-time position as a product development engineer after only 3 months. Is that true?
Yeah, it is. I was pretty lucky, yeah.
But as your career at Lush continued, your work started to get criticized.
Yeah, honestly, I felt like the timing of that was a little weird because it seemed as though that my reports about my work and stuff were started to decline after I raised some concerns about Drufo maybe being dangerous. But yeah, I mean, whatever the reason, yeah,
Mr. Durst, I would like if you would answer yes or no.
yes.
You were even put on a performance improvement plan.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the timing felt a little weird, but yeah, I was.
And after that, you went to Blake Doncourt to try to fix this.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, timing felt weird. It felt a little unfair. So I just wanted to talk to him about it.
And on more than one occasion, Blake Doncourt refused to intervene. Is that correct?
Yeah, which I felt a little hurt by that. I thought I was doing a good enough job. So I was a little surprised he wouldn't at least give me the time of day about it.
And you were ultimately fired from Lush Fertilizer?
Yeah, I was.
Let's talk about your work at Lush. You believe that studies done by Lush showed a problem with Drufo, right?
I mean, yeah, just reading the information that was available to me, that's the conclusion I came away with. Yeah.
According to you, none of the studies found any connection with non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
Well, it's not that they didn't find any connection. It's that they concluded that more research was necessary before any final conclusions could be made about a connection.
You claimed that the study was incredibly misleading.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, based on my personal hand in the study, that's how it felt to me.
But you also admit that you did not have access to all the data analyzed by the research and development team?
Yeah, which that just makes me wonder how misleading the study could be. And I mean, because I just know what information I saw. So who knows how bad it really could be.
Without this access to all the data, you claim that a causal link was buried?
Well, I guess I more got that impression based on the meetings and what I heard from management. But yeah.
Science is about gathering facts, correct?
Yeah.
And analyzing data?
Yeah, that's correct.
You have never spoken to the team members about their findings, right?
Well, I mean, we do speak in our weekly meetings. So no, I don't think that's necessarily true.
That's because even though you were a full-time research engineer for Lush, you were on the team that conducted the study. You were not on the team conducted for that study, sorry.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
That's because even though you were a full-time research engineer for Lush, you were not on the team that conducted this study.
No, I mean, I definitely conducted research on the Drufo project.
So is that a yes?
Yes, I was on the team that conducted the study.
You received an abysmal performance review in early 2005.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the timing of that was a little weird, but yeah.
This was on the heels of your performance improvement plan?
Maybe. Yeah, I think so.
Your last plea for Blake to intervene between you and Gary Langley was rejected.
Objection, asked and answered.
Your
I
Honor,
believe it was.
Your Honor, I'm just trying to clarify the situation between Blake Doncourt and Gary Langley.
Okay. Go ahead. You can answer the question.
Your last plea for Blake Doncourt to intervene between you and Gary Langley was rejected.
Yeah, it was.
So at first you were disheartened.
Yeah, I was kind of disheartened. Like I said, I felt pretty close to the Dawn courts and I felt like I was doing a good job and that I was being reviewed unfairly. So yeah, I was pretty disheartened.
Then you were seized with anger.
Sorry.
Then you were seized with anger.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, I was just sad that someone I'd known for so long wouldn't stick up for me.
You felt confused, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a pretty long time, so I don't remember all the exact emotions, but yeah, I was pretty upset.
And you also felt betrayed.
Yes.
And all of this happened by someone who claimed you as part of the family.
Yeah, which is why I was a little surprised.
Now you work for a direct competitor of Lush.
Well, I mean, I guess that's true. I know fertilizer, and I think it makes sense to move from one fertilizer company to another fertilizer company. And I think,
Mr. Durst, is that a yes?
yes.
Okay. And are now on the verge of creating a fertilizer that will outperform Lush?
Yeah, I mean, we've been working really hard at Terrace Greenery. I'm proud of the work we're doing.
When Lush became aware of your job at Terrace, it sued you for violation of the non-disclosure agreement that you had signed when you first started to work at Lush, correct?
Yeah, which I found a little confusing because, I mean, if I'm such a bad employee, I don't understand why they should make such a fuss about me leaving. But yeah.
The agreement provided that you could not work in the same field for over a period of 2 years, correct?
Well, yeah, but I mean, I guess at that point, I just felt like Lush hadn't done right by me, and I didn't really necessarily feel like I had to do right by them.
That agreement, but Lush agreed to allow you to go work at Terrace after just 6 months, correct?
Yes, after a legal battle, I was able to go work at Terrace.
That's 18 months less than what Lush could have insisted on, correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was settled in the courtroom, but yeah, I guess it was. I guess was able to get a job quicker than what was necessarily on the agreement.
Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Durst, why did you leave to go and work at Terrace Greenery?
Well, I think it makes sense. I know fertilizer's what I had done. And so I think it makes sense to go work for another fertilizer company.
Thank you. I have no further questions at this time.
Thank you, counsel. This plaintiff have another witness to call.
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff calls Dr. Casey Rogers to the stand.
All right. Dr. Rogers, you understand that you are still under oath from the oath you gave earlier?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, if we can have the defense attorney who will be cross-examining Dr. Rogers. Excellent.
Your Honor, may I have a second to change my name?
if you wish.
Thank you.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Sure.
Could you please state your name for the record?
My name is Dr. Casey Rogers.
Now, you say you're a doctor. Are you a medical doctor?
No, my PhD is in agriculture and entomology.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a professor in the horticulture and entomology department at University of California, Berkeley.
What degrees do you hold?
Well, that PhD is from UC Berkeley in agriculture and entomology. And then I also have a Bachelor of Science in agriculture and chemistry from CSU.
Did you do research to get your PhD?
I did.
What kind of research have you done?
Well, before my PhD, I worked as a research analyst for a large multinational chemical company. And then since I got my PhD, I've published many scholarly articles about the effects of exposure to Drufo and other chemicals.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that I'm asking the witness and opposing counsel to look at copies of what has been previously marked as Exhibits 6 and 7.
The record will so reflect.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Rogers, do you recognize Exhibit 6?
Yes, it's a copy of my curriculum vitae, and it just shows my educational and professional work background.
Who prepared this document?
I did.
Does this document accurately show your education and qualifications?
It does.
Is it common practice to make a CV if you've graduated from a master's program or if you work as a professor at an academic institution?
It is. You have to show it off somehow.
Your Honor, at this time, I move for the admission of Exhibit 6.
Any objections?
No objections, Your Honor.
Then it will be admitted.
As outlined in Exhibit 6, what are you currently researching?
Well, I'm working in the environmental chemistry and toxicology laboratory at UC Berkeley, and a lot of my research is important to minimize the hazards of pesticide exposure to humans.
And now, do you recognize Exhibit 7?
I do. It's a copy of my research publications.
Is it a fair and accurate copy of all of your publications in this field?
It is.
Who prepared this document?
I did.
Is it common practice to make a list of research publications?
It is.
Your Honor, at this time, I move for the admission of Exhibit 7.
Any objections?
No objections, Your Honor.
Then it will be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. And now, what is the main focus of your research publications?
Well, in the last 9 years, I've had 4 research publications on Drufo, which includes one of my own studies on Drufo. So I'd say recently, my main focus has been Drufo.
How has your research been used?
It's used in 2 ways, one in litigation and administrative advisory boards, although this is my first time testifying personally, and then also in recommendations to companies for how they should handle their product and how they should recommend their customers handle their product.
Your Honor, at this time, I move to qualify Dr. Rogers as an expert in the fields of environmental chemistry and toxicology.
Any objection?
Objection, I'd like to voir dire.
Proceed.
Dr. Rogers, you have a PhD in agriculture and entomology, correct?
That's correct.
And then a bachelor in chemistry?
Yes.
But you don't have a degree in toxicology.
No degree in toxicology, no.
Yet you study the effects of Drufo on the body, or just the chemicals in general?
That's right. I have toxicology experience.
No further questions.
Any objections to the specific areas in which Dr. Rogers has been submitted for qualifications?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Then the doctor may give opinions in those topics.
Now, Dr. Rogers, what motivated you to study Drufo?
Well, after Drufo was released on the market, I read reports of potential negative side effects, and I wasn't aware of any sufficient studies on its safety. And then after learning that Drufo was carcinogenic in rats, I wanted to investigate the effects on humans myself.
How did you examine Drufo after learning that it's carcinogenic in rats?
I conducted my own study on long-term health effects of exposure to Drufo.
How did you conduct your study?
I observed and compared 3 groups of people over multiple years. The first group was my control group, and those were people who were never exposed to Drufo. The second group were people who were exposed to Drufo on occasion. And then the third group were people who were exposed to Drufo on a regular, almost daily basis.
Why did you have a control group?
A control group is helpful in situations like these so that we can just change one variable and then compare other groups against kind of a background to really figure out the effect of that variable.
Did you find a connection between Drufo and cancer development?
I did. I found that those with higher exposure to Drufo had higher incidences of cancer.
According to your study, how much does Drufo increase that likelihood of humans developing cancer?
Well, in my study, that third group, those with prolonged exposure, were 10 times more likely to be diagnosed with cancer as those in the control group, those with no exposure. And that third group was also 5 times as likely to be diagnosed with cancer as those with occasional exposure, or those in that second group.
So as we know, the plaintiff has been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Did you find any incidences of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in your study?
I did. The majority of cancers that were diagnosed, that the people in my study were diagnosed with, were endocrine and exocrine based varieties. And non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is an exocrine based variety. And I did find instances of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma specifically in my study.
How does non-Hodgkin's lymphoma relate to environmental toxicology?
Well, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is not inherited genetically. It's usually caused by environmental factors, which includes exposure to pesticides. That's how it kind of relates to my work. And the toxins and pesticides can be absorbed through the skin or more dangerously inhaled.
How do your findings relate to the plaintiff, Dakota Weirs?
Well, I reviewed Dakota Weirs' medical and employment records, and we know that Weirs was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And we also know that Weirs did not use protective gear while handling Lush fertilizer products. And we also know that all Lush fertilizer products sold in the United States contain Drufo.
Where would Ms. Weirs fit into your study?
Well, if we recall the 3 groups, the first group had no exposure to Drufo, and Ms. Weirs doesn't fit into that group. The second group had occasional exposure to Drufo, but Ms. Weirs' level of exposure would put her into that third group of my study, those with regular, almost daily exposure. That same group that had a 10 times greater chance of developing cancer than those with no exposure to Drufo.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers. I have no further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, good evening, Dr. Rogers. I am Leah Peters, and I will be asking you a few questions today. You've never testified as an expert witness, correct?
I haven't.
You've claimed that Drufo has proven to be carcinogenic in rats, correct?
I haven't personally proven that, but I've read that study.
You did do a study in which you allegedly found that Drufo does cause cancer.
Yes.
But this work hasn't been peer reviewed.
It hasn't, and I hope it will be in the future and recreated.
You are aware that Dakota Weirs claims that they developed non-Hodgkin lymphoma from Drufo and Lush fertilizer?
That's right.
And yours is the only study that shows a link between Drufo and cancer in humans?
That's right. And I hope that more will be done in the future to really solidify that connection.
But there are other studies that do not reach the same conclusion as yours.
That's right.
Most people who are exposed to Drufo work in the gardening industry.
They can work in all different industries, but gardening industry is one of them.
Okay. And they are exposed to many other types of chemicals when working with fertilizers, correct?
It can be.
Including pesticides?
That's right.
Herbicides?
Yes.
And other toxins?
That's right.
You didn't do any other research regarding other chemicals found in fertilizer or in that industry in general?
I didn't need to. I was just looking at the effects of Drufo.
You claim that those working with Drufo should be wearing protective gear?
They should be.
Like covering your skin with clothing?
That's right. And my study on this actually wasn't conclusive. So I can't say for 100% certainty what the best way to protect yourself from these toxins are. But generally for toxins, the best way to protect yourself is long clothing and wearing a face mask.
So just for clarification to the jury, that you would recommend the protective gear of wearing clothing and like masks and stuff?
Yes, generally, but I can't say from a study standpoint that I've done myself because that was inconclusive.
In fact, do you specifically believe or recommend this, pardon, that this should be avoid breathing the fertilizer or having contact with the skin?
That's right. Generally for toxins, that's how you can make sure that they stay out of your body.
Dakota Weirs did not wear any of this kind of protective clothing, did she?
She did not.
And Lush Fertilizer specifically warned users that they should use these types of protection?
Yeah, they say that the only risk is eye irritation as well.
But it's to avoid any injury that might arise from exposure.
That's right.
You are also aware that Dakota Weir's employer told him to wear protective clothing, eye and breathing protection.
I am aware.
So Dakota Weir's intentionally failed to take reasonable precautions when using this product.
That's right. I'm sure she must have been worried about eye irritation.
Just again, yes or no for that. Dakota Weir's initially failed to take reasonable precautions and they decided to ignore her employer's warning.
Objection asked and answered.
Judge, it is just for clarification to the jury of Dakota Weir's ignoring the precautions that were set by the company that she worked for.
I'll allow the question.
Do
you want to re-ask it?
Do you want me to re-ask it?
No, I can answer. Ms. Weirs did not use protective clothing.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. In accordance to the label, was there any reason that Dakota Weir should wear protective clothing?
Unless she was really worried about eye irritation, then no. There was no warning about cancer on the label or any other health conditions.
Thank you. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Does the plaintiff have any other witnesses to call?
No, Your Honor. The plaintiff rests our case.
Thank you. Does the defense wish to call their first witness?
Yes, we would.
Your Honor, excuse me.
Yes.
We have a discrepancy with the time, and I just wanted to make sure that we don't run into any issues.
Okay.
It's over a minute off.
Okay. What does the plaintiff have for the time?
I have a minute left for the plaintiff direct, but they're all done at this point, so.
I have 2 minutes. I just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page about pausing for objections and voir dire was part of cross.
Yes, I have that pause for objections and voir dire counts for time.
Okay.
For cross-examination?
Yes.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll not run into this on the defense case.
Okay,
Thank
sorry
you
for the interruption.
No, that's okay. I appreciate the communications. All right. So is the defense ready to present their first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. We'd like to present our first witness of Blake Doncourt.
All right. And does the plaintiff have an attorney ready for cross-examination of Ms. Doncourt?
Yes, Your Honor.
Excellent. Defense may proceed with their first witness.
Good afternoon. My name is Gavin Almoody. I'll be direct examining you this afternoon or evening. Can you please state your full name and spell your last?
My name is Blake Doncourt. That's Doncourt.
Ms. Doncourt, are you currently?
Excuse me, I can't hear your question. Can you restate it, please?
Ms. Doncourt, are you currently employed?
Yes, I'm currently employed for Lush Industries or Lush Fertilizer Corporation.
And what do you do for Lush?
I'm the Chief Executive Officer for Lush Fertilizer.
How many years have you been the CEO?
I've been the CEO for over 20 years now.
Can you tell me about some of the awards Lush Fertilizer has received for its charity work, if any?
For our generous charity work, we have received the Business Sustainability Award.
Have you won any awards yourself, Mr. Doncourt? Ms. Doncourt?
Well, I myself have been nominated and won the United Nations Champions of the Earth Award.
Why were you nominated for these awards?
Down to our core roots, at Lush, we are humanitarians. We care deeply about the environment, and that I made it my mission to make sure that our company has the same pillar values.
Ms. Doncourt, who is Carson Durst?
Carson Durst is a former employee of mine, whom I had considered like a second son to me.
And what happened with Carson Durst and Lush Fertilizer?
Well, Carson released some proprietary communication in the form of an email that alleges to the identity as Drufo being identified as a carcinogen, which let me tell you right now that the email is completely manufactured and these claims are false.
Ms. Doncourt, can you please tell us about the study that Lush Fertilizer conducted regarding Drufo?
Our toxicology department conducted various studies regarding the use of Drufo and its effects on the body. All of our results were inconclusive and have no valid evidence showing that Drufo is in fact carcinogenic.
Ms. Doncourt, does Lush and Fertilizer bake their fertilizer?
No, we do not bake our fertilizer.
Is it necessary to bake the fertilizer?
No, from a scientific and a business perspective, we find that baking the fertilizer is simply unnecessary and it's overkill.
Has your company analyzed the financial impacts of baking?
Yes, we have. At our company, I'd like to pride myself in being completely transparent and releasing our financial findings.
Your Honor, I'm showing opposing counsel what has been marked as Exhibit A for identification. Present.
Okay.
Ms. Doncourt, what I've just shown you is previously marked as Exhibit A. Do you recognize this?
I do.
What is this?
This is our 10-year amortization plan from 2004 to 2014.
Who made this document?
I made this document.
Was it something you used to track profitability?
Yes, this is a standard business practice.
Does Lush frequently track their financial spendings?
Yes, we do.
Ms. Doncourt, are you familiar with these findings?
Yes, I am.
Is this a complete description of the report?
It is.
Is this an accurate depiction of the report?
Yes, it is.
Is it altered in any way?
It is not.
Your Honor, defense moves for the entry of Exhibit 8 into evidence. Its authenticity has been stipulated and its accuracy has been shown.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Exhibit 8 will be admitted into evidence.
Ms. Doncourt, what is the estimated increase in profits by eliminating baking?
Estimated profit increase is 6% the first year, and it increases by 2% every year thereafter.
Ms. Doncourt, what did that look like in actual numbers?
Well, let me tell you, the baking costs were around $250,000 annually, with a total estimated overall revenue loss of $2.6 million.
And why is this important?
Well, we use this money to pay a competitive wage to our employees. We also use this to pay our shareholders who demand a profit from us as a company. And we donate 10% of this to charities that work in turn to reduce the global nitrogen footprint.
Thank you, Ms. Doncourt. That'll be all.
Do we need to take Exhibit 8 down? All right. Cross-examination. Are you done, counsel?
We are done.
All right, thank you. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Good evening, Ms. Doncourt. I'm going to be asking you some questions about your testimony.
Good evening.
You testified that you won multiple awards for your charity work.
That is correct.
And you donate 10% of your profits to charity.
As I stated, yes.
But Lush is not a charity.
We have our own charity.
Lush is a privately owned business for profit, correct?
Yes, as that's what most businesses are.
And this business has investors, right?
Yes, we do.
Vulture investors, as you call them.
Yes, they demand a lot of our profits.
Mm-hmm. They demand a good return on their investment, correct?
That is what I said in my statement.
And part of giving these vulture investors what they want, you need to turn a profit.
That is correct.
And part of making a profit is not spending what you deem to be extraneous money, correct?
That is correct.
Like baking Drufo, for example.
Yes.
Even though baking Drufo would eliminate all risk that your fertilizer could cause cancer.
I uphold that our fertilizer is safe, and so therefore Drufo is not necessary, meaning the cost is unnecessary.
Ms. Doncourt, on line 111 of your witness statement, you admit that there is a risk to Drufo in its non-baked form.
What I said in my statement was that the fertilizer had little to no risk.
But a little risk is still a risk, is it not, Ms. Doncourt?
As you put it, it is.
I would now like to direct your attention to what has previously been admitted, Exhibit 8. To begin, I would like to talk about your profits. So this table shows that you could increase your profits by 6% by not baking Drufo in the first year.
Yes, that's correct.
To simplify, for 6 pennies per every dollar, you could have baked Drufo.
I'm sorry, can you restate your question?
Yeah. For 6 pennies per every dollar, you could have baked Drufo.
I suppose.
Yeah, this was too expensive for you.
Yes, as I stated.
And in the following years, not baking Drufo would only increase your profits by a measly 2%.
Well, when you look at our whole annual numbers, it's not just a measly 2%.
That means that's just 2 cents for every dollar you make, is it not?
Well, when you put it that way, I suppose.
Drawing on the table again, for 1% more per year, you could have baked Drufo, referring to the cost increase.
Yes, we could have.
Meaning that for 1 penny per dollar, you could have eliminated any risk that Drufo could cause cancer in humans.
Asked and answered.
Response.
Your Honor, this is going to the estimate cost increase and not the estimate profit increase.
Okay, I'll allow it.
Would you like me to restate my question?
Yes, please.
Meaning that just increasing your cost by 1%, 1 penny for every dollar, you could have baked Drufo.
That is correct.
But you did not spend that penny, correct?
Well, no, every cent counts when it comes to being a profitable company.
So 1 penny was too much to prevent any chance that Miss Weirs could have cancer.
Can you restate your question in a different way?
1 penny was too expensive for you to alleviate any risk that Drufo could cause cancer in Miss Weirs.
That is correct.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Counselor. Any redirect?
No to redirect, Your Honor.
All right. Why don't we take Exhibit 8 down, and if the defense could call their next witness.
Defense calls Skylar Weirs to the stand.
I will be directing Skylar Weirs.
All right. You may proceed when ready.
Good evening, Mr. Weirs.
Good
I
evening.
am Judy Renfro, and I'll be asking you a few questions. Please start by stating your name and spelling your last name.
I am Skylar Weirs, Weirs.
Mr. Weirs, why are you here?
I'm here to testify to the fact that Lush has done nothing wrong.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Weirs?
I am employed as an investigative journalist.
What does an investigative journalist do?
Essentially, my job entails being assigned a series of articles on a certain subject to write on. I research, and most of those articles have some general questioning around them because investigative journalism. And I spend some time researching those topics, and then I present my findings in my articles that are published.
Tell us about the Rationalist Society.
The Rationalist Society is a nonprofit organization dedicated to informing the public of the truth behind some skepticism surrounding certain scientific industries.
Did you go to college?
No, I chose to forego college because it didn't make much financial sense.
Does your job require a college education?
No, it does not. I'm self-taught.
Have you heard of the chemical Drufo before?
Yes, I have.
Have you done any research regarding Drufo?
Yes, Drufo and Lush was one of the subjects that my articles was focusing on, so I did some extensive research.
What kind of research?
Well, I looked into Lush as a business itself, and then I did research into what Drufo was and whether it was good or bad, and I determined that it was a revelation.
Mr. Weirs, in which fields do you research?
I research modern agritech.
What is modern agritech?
Modern agritech is essentially the practices and development of certain agricultural technologies and the businesses that put out these products.
Has your research provided a deeper understanding of modern agritech?
Yes, I believe that after all of my hours of research, no one has the overall perspective over modern agritech than me, aside from the NASDA and the USDA.
Your Honor, the defense moves to admit Mr. Skylar Weirs as an expert in the field of investigative journalism and analyzing the current state of research on the effect of Drufo on humans.
Any objection?
Permission for a brief voir dire, Your Honor.
Brief voir dire, and before you do, just be aware of the court's pretrial ruling on this issue.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Weirs, to get a medical degree, you have to receive a 4-year undergraduate degree, right?
Sorry, repeat the question, please.
To get a medical degree, you have to receive a 4-year undergraduate degree, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Study for 4 years in medical school
Yes.
and complete a 4-year residency, right?
Yes, that is how you become a doctor, I suppose.
So that would be at least 12 years of training after high school.
Around, yes.
But Mr. Weirs, you only studied Drufo for 1 year, right?
Yes.
And during that year, you read articles.
Yes, I took the findings of scientists and I put it into my own articles.
But
I'm not a scientist, I'm a journalist.
right, and you didn't do any work in the field of agritech.
No, because I'm a journalist. I just report on the activities of modern agritech and their industries.
So all your knowledge about Drufo comes from reading articles that someone else researched and published, correct?
Yes, I've read studies from scientists that have went over this, and I have used it as evidence and logic in my conclusions.
Thank you. Your Honor, while the witness has established that they've reviewed publications and information maintained by the USDA and NASDA regarding agritech, the witness has failed to prove that they spent considerable time researching Drufo, as a single year is not sufficient to fully qualify this witness as an expert. Therefore, while I do not object to Mr. Weirs being qualified in the field of agritech, I do object to any expert opinion testimony about Drufo or its effects.
Okay. I feel I'm bound by the previous judge's order, a pretrial on this issue. And based on that order, we will allow the witness to testify subject to your cross-examination, and the jury can do with his testimony what it wishes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Counsel, you may proceed.
Mr. Weirs,
Yes.
have you formed an opinion to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty as to whether Drufo causes cancer on humans?
Yes, I have, and I can confidently say that it does not.
What is that opinion, sir?
That Drufo is completely harmless to the human body.
Objection, Your Honor, lack of personal knowledge under Rule 602, as this witness is testifying to information that is beyond the scope of Agritech.
I don't know if that's a 602 objection. Any response?
This is within the scope of his expertise because it has to do with how he formed his opinion, Your Honors.
I'll allow it at this time.
May I proceed?
You may.
Why is Drufo a revolution?
Drufo is something that it completely changes the fertilizer game. It makes it so there's less nitrogen runoff in the soil. Sorry? Okay. It makes it so there's less nitrogen runoff in the soil and groundwater. So it's just better for the environment, and it's just better than its competitors because of Drufo's bonding. It only has to be applied once or twice a year, as opposed to 5 to 6 times that its competitors offer.
Have you heard of Lush Fertilizer, INC?
Yes, I have.
What do you know about them?
I know that Lush is the people that developed Drufo and put it in their fertilizer. And I've also researched to the fact that they donate 10% of their annual profits to very admirable charities.
Why has Drufo been so heavily criticized?
Well, this has happened before in modern agritech when there is a major development in the quote old guard of modern agritech. Just pretty much has a smear campaign against this company and essentially buries that new product so they can keep selling their less efficient products.
Mr. Weirs, do you believe these accusations?
No, I do not.
I'd like to talk about your relationship with Dakota. So, what is your connection to the plaintiff today?
Dakota is my twin.
Did you and your twin grow up in the same home?
Yes, we did.
Did you go to school together?
Yes, we did.
Did you two grow up in similar environments?
Yes, aside from, I suppose, Havens, yes.
At what point did your environments differ from each other?
Right. As I said, Havens Landscaping was her job as because it's a landscaping company. I could obviously not work there because I'm allergic to grass. So that's where we were not together environmentally.
You're testifying against them?
Yes, I am.
Are you currently employed by the Rationalist magazine?
Yes.
How do you make your money?
Well, I pretty much just, they tell me what to investigate and write an article on, and I sell that article to them and they publish it. So I get some income there, but I also have a second job.
Do you have any financial issues that cause you a problem today?
Yes, I have the vice of gambling, and because of that, I have amassed a pretty significant debt.
Has your sibling's condition impacted your family life?
Well, obviously, I'm testifying here today, so there's one product of their condition, but my family had to stop paying off my gambling debts to prioritize Dakota's health, which obviously I'm perfectly fine with. It's my sister's life and health, obviously is prioritized over my own past mistakes. That's why I'm working the second job at Applebee's to try and work my way out of that debt myself.
Thank you. No more further questions, Your Honor.
All right, cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Good evening, Mr. Weirs. Today I'm going to ask you a few questions.
Good evening.
Mr. Weirs, you're testifying against your twin, Dakota Weirs, correct?
Yes, I am.
But you and Dakota don't necessarily have the best relationship, do you?
Well, no, we don't. We've never had that really stereotypical twin relationship, I suppose. No, regrettably so.
Dakota got cancer. Your family had to pay for the medical bills, right?
Yes,
They were pretty expensive, weren't they?
yes, they were.
So expensive that your parents could no longer support you financially.
If you're referring to my debts, as I stated previously, yes, they could no longer pay for them. So that's why I'm working on it myself.
You're also a gambler, right?
Yes,
So specifically, your parents could no longer pay off your gambling debt.
yes. Again, I don't really see what my gambling debt has to do with this case or bias, but okay.
So it must have been pretty hard for you financially then.
Well, yes, obviously, journalists get underpaid across the entire field. So that's why I took on a second job.
So you could even say that you resent Dakota for using up your father's money when you had debts of your own from your gambling addiction.
No, that's preposterous. No, I would never resent my own sister for needing money to help her physically, as opposed to my gambling debts. That's insane to even put forward. No, I do not resent Dakota at all.
You are here testifying against your twin, correct?
Yes, I am.
Now, let's talk about your experience researching Drufo.
Okay.
Mr. Weir, as we previously established, you only studied Drufo for 1 year,
Around that time, yes.
and during that year, you only wrote one article about Drufo and cancer.
Yes, I did.
And as an investigative journalist, in these articles, you write about pseudoscientific hit jobs, as you referred to them.
Yes,
You claim that these hit jobs were financially motivated.
they were. Yes.
One example you gave of this was how Monsanto utilized GMOs to monopolize the commercial maize market and was then sabotaged by its competitors, right?
Yeah, like I said, this has happened before and it's happening all again now to less fertilizer.
And its competitors did so by attacking GMOs.
Yes.
You provided this example to suggest this is happening with Drufo.
Sorry, repeat the question.
And you provided this example to suggest that the same is happening with Drufo, correct?
Yes, the same is happening with Drufo.
So your argument is that the claims saying Drufo causes cancer are rooted in finance rather than scientific motives, correct?
Yes, I do.
But Drufo is not a GMO, is it?
No, it isn't.
And there's no evidence that Drufo is being financially attacked, right?
Well, obviously, no company will come right out and say it because that'll hurt sales.
So that's a no.
No, that is a no.
And there's no indication of these same financial motives used by competitors using GMOs in play with respect to Drufo, right?
It doesn't have to be GMOs. It is just an advancement in their field and they'll do whatever it takes to bury it.
However, the only example you gave was with respect to GMOs, correct?
That is the example that I provided, yes.
Lastly, you published an article saying Drufo doesn't cause cancer, right?
That's correct.
So your reputation as a journalist relies on your claim that Drufo is safe.
I suppose so, but again, I have multiple other articles.
Meaning if significant evidence were to emerge that Drufo does cause cancer, your reputation would fall apart.
I wouldn't say fall apart. I mean, obviously, Drufo is safe, so I'm not really concerned about that. But sure, I guess my reputation might take a hit if it's proven to cause cancer, which it does not.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Counselor. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank
All
you.
right, the witness may be excused. Does the defense have any other witnesses?
We would like to call Dr. Devin Williams.
Dr. Williams, you understand that you are still under oath?
I do. May I have a second to change my name?
Sure. Timekeepers, hold on while that happens.
Okay.
All right. All right, you
Good
may
evening,
proceed.
Dr. Williams.
Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Williams. I'm Malia Peters, and I will be asking you a few questions today. Please state your first name and your last name and spell your last name to the court.
My name is Devin Williams, Williams.
And what exactly do you do, Dr. Williams?
Well, I'm lead the research and toxicology labs at Lush Fertilizer.
What does that consist of?
It consists of working to understand how biological systems respond to environmental interventions and helping my company.
Do you do any other work outside of Lush Fertilizer?
Yes, I teach at the University of New Mexico.
Let's talk about your education. Where did you go to college?
I went to college at Colorado State University for my undergrad and my PhD, and my post-PhD program was completed at the University of Utah.
And what did you major in?
I majored in pharmacology and toxicology.
Cool. Your Honor, let the record reflect I am showing to opposing counsel a copy of Exhibit 9. Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with which has been pre-marked as Exhibit 9.
Permission granted.
Are you familiar with this document, Dr. Williams?
I am.
And what is it?
It's my CV.
And who wrote it?
I wrote it.
And do you keep it up to date on a daily?
I do. It's part of my business practices.
Is this fair?
Yes.
Accurate?
Yes,
And a complete copy of your CV?
it is.
Your Honor, permission to move what has been pre-marked as Exhibit 9 into evidence?
Any objections?
Objection, hearsay.
Due to Rule 8306, it is a business exemption. It's to build her curriculum of what she teaches at school or for her education. And it's just building the foundation of what she is an expert in.
I'll allow it for the foundational purpose.
Dr. Williams, can you please explain to us the topics of some of your publications?
Yes, I have made a lot of publications in aspects of poisons and toxicology and the overall effect of some types of chemicals on rats.
And you've also taught a few courses as your CV shows.
I have. I currently teach Forensic Toxicology 1 and 2, Principles of Forensic Toxicology, and Toxicology of Environmental and Occupational Chemicals.
Your Honor, the defense moves to admit Dr. Williams as an expert witness in the areas of pharmacology, toxicology, and the impact of Drufo has on the human body, as her knowledge, skill, experience, training, and education has been demonstrated.
Any objection?
Permission to perform a voir dire, Your Honor.
Yeah, you may perform voir dire. Do we need the CV up or can we take that down?
No, Your Honor. We don't need that. Okay.
Take the CV down, please. All right, you may proceed with voir dire.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Williams, you haven't published any articles on the toxicological effects of Drufo, correct?
I have not.
All of your articles have been solely about poisons and drugs, correct?
That's correct.
Forensic toxicology and pharmacology both have a specific emphasis on the study of drugs, right?
They do.
However, Drufo is not a drug, is it?
No, but it may be said to have similar effects on rats and humans.
You haven't done any personal research on the toxicological effects of Drufo, right?
I have not.
So you don't have any special expertise regarding Drufo because you haven't written any articles and you haven't done your own research on Drufo.
I suppose not.
Your Honor, I don't object to this witness being qualified in the fields of toxicology and pharmacology, but I do object to qualifying this witness as an expert to testify on the toxicological effects of Drufo.
All right, counsel, do you have any response to that?
No, that's fine.
All right, then the witness will be so qualified and testimony will be limited as such.
Dr. Williams, when did you start working for Lush?
Around 2010.
And what has your job consisted of?
Well, I started as a lab technician, but I was since promoted to lead those very labs.
And do you work with Drufo in your job?
I do, yes.
And what exactly is Drufo?
Drufo, without revealing too many trade secrets, is actually our chemical that makes slush fertilizer special. It helps bind to plants and it helps just grow. As fertilizer does, it helps to grow the plants better.
And is it environmentally aware?
Yes, very much so.
What makes it so environmentally aware?
Well, the nitrates in it allow it to better bind to plants and soil, so less washes away into water streams and less harms fish and humans. Less nitrates.
Is Drufo banned in any other country?
Yes, it's banned in actually the entirety of the EU.
And do you know why it's banned in the EU?
Yes, not for any concerns about cancer whatsoever. It's actually because the nitrate accumulation in labs from Drufo was more than the EU would have allowed otherwise, but it would have been perfectly fine in natural settings.
Why did the EU ban it if it's so successful?
Well, because the EU has, quite frankly, ridiculous standards on how much nitrates should be accumulated in lab tests versus the real world.
You hope this decision by the EU will be retracted?
Yes, I do. And I'm currently working on the study with my fellow co-workers that will help to prove its safety.
And do you believe Drufo can cause non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
I don't, not at all.
Is there something else you think could cause non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
Yes.
And outside of the witness's expertise, as they have not been qualified to testify on the toxicological effects of Drufo.
Your Honor.
I'll sustain that objection.
Okay. Are there any other chemicals in fertilizers that could harm the body?
Yes, there are nitrates in every single fertilizer that's out there. It's what helps the plants grow.
And it is your opinion that there are many other opinions, or pardon, not opinions, there's many other chemicals that could have caused cancer?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Please.
Dr. Williams, you've led the toxicology research and development labs at Lush for 7 years, right?
I have.
So for the last 7 years, it's been your job to make sure Lush fertilizer is safe for the public to use.
Yes, it has been.
If Lush fertilizer was proven to be unsafe, it would have been under your watch, right?
Yes, that's why I tried my best to make sure it is safe for the public.
You're being paid by Lush to testify today, right?
Of course, in the end, I do work for a company.
And Drufo is banned in the EU, as you said, right?
Yes, but not for any carcinogenic qualities.
And you said that Lush plans to submit findings for reconsideration of EU approval, correct?
Yes.
You admit that this lawsuit could change that.
Yes, it could.
In fact, you state, if a US court were to find that Drufo causes cancer, that would create a whole host of new bureaucratic roadblocks with the EU.
Yes, it would. And my job is to better further science. This would deter all of fertilizer science if it were to go badly.
So because you work for Lush and because you are trying to get Drufo to be sold in the EU, you have a financial interest in this lawsuit, right?
Of course, but I'm more interested in progressing the scientific community.
And now you criticize Dr. Rogers for comparing exposure to Drufo for farm laborers, casual gardeners, and people who didn't do either of those things, right?
Yes, it's comparing apples to oranges.
You stated that a valid study would need to compare farm laborers who use Drufo to those who use fertilizers without Drufo, right?
Yes, and it would also need to be peer reviewed, which Dr. Rogers has not been.
However, you yourself never did a study of your own to compare these groups of farm laborers, right?
No, but I'm not the one that's testifying in favor of Lush being carcinogenic.
And now, Your Honor, may I consult my co-counsel for just 1 second?
You may.
And now, in your statement, you told us a lot about the conclusions of Lush's study, but you didn't tell us how the data was gathered, right?
No, I did not.
You never told us the sample size Lush used in their study, right?
No, the study is still currently in process.
You never told us how long Lush studied people who use these fertilizers.
No, I did not.
You never told us what variables Lush controlled for.
No, the study is still in process.
So the jury has no way of understanding how reliable your conclusions are because you haven't adequately explained Lush's research.
Because the results aren't complete. I want to try my best to complete the results so I can help the public.
And now you stated that, quote, Lush's CEO, Blake Doncourt, needed you to keep Drufo products industry-leading, environmentally aware, and cost-effective, correct?
That's correct. It's what I get paid for.
However, one of these priorities was not the health of Lush's customers, was it?
Who's to say that?
According to that statement.
No, I suppose not. It's not my statement.
Thank you. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Counselor. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. May I go?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Dr. Williams, could you just tell me what toxicology means?
Pardon, could you repeat the question?
Can you tell me what toxicology means?
Yes, it's the study of chemicals, namely on the human body.
So your whole job, not for what you're hired for, but principle as a scientist, is to focus on the harms on the human body, chemicals?
Yes, it is. I try to work to neutralize that harm.
So even though Lush Fertilizer pays you, you're still looking out for the betterment of the people and the environment?
Of course I am. That's my job as a scientist.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Counselor. Any additional witnesses for the defense?
No, Your Honor.
Any matters to take up before closing?
I don't believe so.
Who will be presenting closing for the plaintiff? Ms. Dolan, is that you?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Okay, proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Lush prioritized profits over people. Your Honor, members of the jury, Dakota Weir's life has been ruined. All of her hopes and dreams have been snatched away from her. You heard today that Lush could have completely eliminated any risk of giving Dakota cancer by simply baking their fertilizer. Instead, Lush prioritized their profits over the health of their customers. The plaintiff has the burden of proving by a preponderance of the evidence, meaning it is more likely than not that Lush Fertilizer, the defendant, was negligent based on 4 elements. First, we had to prove that Lush manufactured a fertilizer containing Drufo. This element is not in dispute. Second, we had to prove that Lush was negligent by failing to prevent the product from creating an unreasonable risk of harm. Carson Durst testified that Lush knew there was a risk in using their product and that Drufo should be baked to eliminate any safety risks. You heard Blake Doncourt testify that Lush did not bake their fertilizer, even though for just 2 cents on the dollar, Lush could have alleviated all risk of Drufo causing cancer. Lush was prioritizing their profits over their customers. Third, Dakota Weirs had to prove that she was a person that the defendant should have reasonably expected to use their product. As Dakota Weirs testified, she worked for a landscaping company, meaning that Lush should have expected that she would use their product. Fourth, and finally, we had to prove that Dakota Weirs' injuries were caused by Lush's negligence. You heard testimony from the plaintiff's expert, Dr. Rogers, that non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is caused by environmental factors. It is not genetic. Ms. Weirs testified that she has a twin brother, Skylar, who also testified here today. The only difference that the twins had in their upbringing was that Dakota worked as a landscaper and Skylar didn't. As Dr. Rogers showed through her study, exposure to Drufo increases the likelihood of developing cancer tenfold compared to people who have never been exposed to Drufo. The defendant's expert, on the other hand, provided no context as to how they came to the conclusion that there is no correlation between Drufo and cancer. On the issue of whether Lush used reasonable care, the risk of harm was certainly not obvious to Dakota, as she thought that the only risk was eye irritation. This belief was based on the label as shown in Exhibit 1, which only contained a warning about eye and skin contact. The label for Lush fertilizer was no more stringent than a bottle of shampoo, for example. While she was told by her employer to wear long pants and long sleeves, you heard her testify that no one at Haven Landscaping followed these suggestions. And that's what they were, mere suggestions. Ladies and gentlemen, Lush did not use reasonable care to warn their users of the risk of getting cancer because they were prioritizing profits over people. For these reasons, the plaintiff has proved Lush's negligence by a preponderance of the evidence. And now the defense is going to ask you to find that Dakota was comparatively negligent. But based on the evidence they presented, they have failed to meet that burden. In order to prove comparative negligence, they had to show that Dakota Weirs failed to do something that reasonably careful people would do to protect themselves from the claimed danger created by the product. However, it was not reasonable for Dakota Weirs to expect to have to protect herself against cancer when the only claimed danger that Lush informed customers about was skin and eye irritation. Your Honor, members of the jury, if you find in favor of Dakota Weirs, we ask you to consider the total amount of damages caused by Lush fertilizer taking away the dreams of a girl and her only lasting connection to her grandfather, which was through her music. Although we cannot reverse what has happened to Dakota Weirs, we can put an end to Lush prioritizing profits over people. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Defense would like to present their closing argument?
Yes.
Ms. Peters,
Yes.
you may proceed when ready.
Show me a hero, and I will write you a tragedy. Good evening, Your Honor, counsel, and jury. My name is Malia Peters, along with my co-counsel, Julie Valenzuela and Gavin L. Moody. I had the privilege of representing Lush Fertilizer in today's trial. Today, we heard about Lush Fertilizer's revolutionary product, Drufo, which has changed the agricultural industry. Drufo is a bonding agent which allows for the fertilizer to do its job more effectively. Drufo only needs to be applied once or twice a year, compared to generic fertilizer brands having to be applied 5 or 6 times a year. This means that Drufo is not only cost-effective for the customer, but makes the world a better place by reducing the amount of nitrogen buildup in the environment. Drufo is a hero in the industry. But the old guard of agricultural technology does not want to see Lush succeed. As you heard today, Lush's competitors have spent inordinate amounts of money to turn Drufo into a tragedy. These campaigns were spread throughout the country and into the living room of one Dakota Weirs. In this case before you, the plaintiff presented insufficient evidence to find my client negligent. The plaintiff stated that while working for Haven Landscaping, that they used many different fertilizers. The plaintiff also stated that they did not wear proper protective equipment. The plaintiff stated they did not think of Lush until a year after their diagnosis, while watching the news and a campaign against Lush was broadcasted. Show me a hero, and I will write you a tragedy. The plaintiff also called Dr. Casey Rogers to testify. Dr. Rogers has stated her opinion in the field of toxicology, but she's not qualified to be giving her statement in the matter of toxicology. She can give her opinion in chemistry or horticulture and entomology, which is the effect on bugs, not humans, which is a huge difference. The plaintiff also called Carson Durst to the stand. Carson Durst is a disgruntled former employee who was unqualified for the job then, just as they are unqualified to testify now. Carson Durst was terminated for poor performance and took the stand today as an employee making significantly more money at one of the competitors who want to turn Drufo into a tragedy. The defense has stated many times that Lush fertilizer is 1, carcinogenic to rats, which are pests to agriculture. 2, how to properly use Lush fertilizer while using proper protective gear, such as gloves, masks, long clothing, etc., which the plaintiff ignored for comfort. And 3, as a company, they have no control over what the consumers do once they have the product. They can put warnings on the product, but the responsibility falls on the consumer in the end. Lush is a great company who is making agriculture a better industry, and their competition is being left in the old era of agricultural technology. With this, anyone would want to find fault in someone's success. The competition has attempted to turn the hero into a tragedy. That is exactly what the plaintiff is trying to do. Everyone here feels for the plaintiff and their condition, but we believe, however, that Dakota Weirs is misguided in who is at fault. Lush Fertilizer is helping the world evolve with its fertilizer. In this case of falsehoods would destroy my client's reputation and set them back in their accomplishments, or even worse, risking everyone losing their beneficial products everywhere. My witnesses have more than proved that Lush Fertilizer is a completely safe and valued product. The CEO, Blake Doncourt, stated that there is very minor risk in Drufo, as well as if there was a problem, Carson Durst, former employee of Lush Fertilizer, could have brought the problems to them at any point, but didn't until now. Skylar Weirs mentioned how Lush Fertilizer is an effective pesticide and only needs to be applied 1 to 2 times a year compared to the generic fertilizer that needs to be applied 5 to 6 times a year. Finally, Dr. Williams, who has a degree in toxicology and whose job is to find the risks in chemicals against humans, has stated there are no harms of Lush nor Drufo. As I had stated, show me a hero and I will write you a tragedy. I am not one for the dramatics, but this line is exactly what's happening. And we cannot let the plaintiff get away with it. This is our future in agriculture at risk here. We cannot stand for the destruction of something so good just because of a concentrated misguidance. Instead of accusing Lush Fertilizer for something they didn't do, we should educate the people. We ask you, the jury, to render the only verdict that is fair, not guilty. Lush Fertilizer is the hero. Don't let them fall from this tragedy over something they didn't do. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Is there time left for rebuttal closing?
I believe I have 30 seconds, Your Honor.
All right, make it quick.
Thank you. Drufo is no hero. Do heroes give people cancer? What the defense called a hero was most likely the cause of Dakota's cancer, as shown by Dr. Rogers' study. Maybe Drufo could have been a hero if the fertilizer was baked. However, it was not. The plaintiff has proved Lush's negligence and Dakota's lack of comparative negligence. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Thank you all. The timekeepers will, or the scorekeepers will input their scores. And if you could come on the screen once you've done so.
So Judge Rich, when you're ready to start giving your comments, you're welcome to. I think Judge Rich would like you folks, the students, to come on so that he can talk to you, give you a few ideas, a few thoughts.
Thank you. Yeah, if the teams can all get yourselves on screen. Excellent. Well, I want to thank you all for participating in this. It's always a pleasure to have to see you guys in action. I'm doing this for a little bit, and it's always good to see the skill level that you guys bring to this competition. My name is Greg Rich. I'm an attorney at a law firm called Coombe, Curry, Rich and Jarvis down in Denver, over by I-25 in Colorado. I do civil litigation, mostly on the defense side, construction and some personal injury, product liability. So I'm familiar with these issues that we see, and it's nice to see some skilled folks doing this. But what I'd like to do then is really turn it over to the scoring panel. Let's start with the oldest and work our way down. Mr. Anderson.
Ouch. First of all, I want to see Tommy in his hoodie. I want to see Tommy in his hoodie. He's like trying to scoot off screen there. There he is. Sorry, I had to give you a hard time there. The girls were like trying to turn the camera, get out of the darn picture. So my name is Tom Henderson. I'm the immediate past president of the Arapahoe County Bar Association. I'm an attorney at the Berg Simpson law firm. I do civil litigation trial work, and a little bit like Greg, except I'm on the other side. My firm does on the plaintiff side. We pursue cases that are very similar to the fact pattern here, in that we do a lot of products liability work. We sue Big Pharma for putting unsafe drugs on the market. That type of thing, also personal injury, work comp. I personally sue insurance companies for bad faith when they don't pay claims like they should. So let me first of all say, really job well done by every single one of you, and can tell that you've all spent a tremendous amount of time and effort learning the fact patterns. The witnesses really, you knew your fact patterns backwards and forwards, which is really good to see. So really job well done by everybody. A few specifics. Let's see, the plaintiff's opening I thought was very well done. On the defense side, I like the hero tragedy kind of dichotomy that you set up there, and the analogy that you set up. And for Team H, sorry, you're going to get to hear me say this a second time, but work hard on not reading. You are better on the this go round than you were that first go round. I had the fortune of being able to see you both ways. A little less reading this time around than the first time. Let's see, Adele, in your direct exam, really good direct questions, and you kind of built on each of them on top of each other, so the logic really flowed well. The person playing Dakota Weirs, Ms. Bjork, really good emotion. You're bordering on going a little bit overboard, but you kind of reined it in a little bit. So a really good job. Good job on that. Very good redirect, Adele, in your when you came back on for the redirect. Cross, a really good hearsay objection to Exhibit 1. That was a really good objection, and there was you did a really good job of saying please, or on the cross, a really good job of saying I need a yes or no answer. And that's usually a hard thing to get a witness who is braced to push back hard on anything you try to get them to do, it's a really good technique to be able to use. Second witness, Madeline, again, very good direct questions. The witness, Tommy, you are nice and relaxed, not as relaxed as you are now in your hoodie, but you are nice and relaxed in your presentation. And then the cross, really well-structured cross-examination and really good, tight, short cross-examination questions. That's a tough skill to be able to develop, having really short, kind of rapid-fire cross-exam questions. For the third witness, Katie, you did a very good job on your direct questions. For the witness, really good explanations of a complicated subject area. And that's when you're the lawyer working with a true doctor, a true PhD, that's a tough thing to get someone to do, because the jury's only going to hear this once. And so they need to be able to hear complex topics distilled down into simple bite-sized pieces. And you did a really nice job of that. Malia, on your cross, again, good short cross questions. On the defense side, Gavin, your direct questions of the witness were very good direct questions, good answers by the witness. The cross, excellent use of the statement to impeach. You went right to, I don't remember what it was, like line 117 or something like that, and you really kind of nailed them. And that's a really good technique to be able to do, and you do it early in your cross, because that witness now knows that if you stray one iota from the fact pattern, guess what? You're going to zing them again with line 32 or whatever it may be. So really well done there. Let's see. Also, good job on getting the admission on 1 penny being the cost to avoid the risk. The witness did not want to give that to you, and you didn't back down. You were very focused in trying to get that admission, and you got it. Let's see. Julie, on witness number 2, a good job to bring up the wart of the financial problems. There's a real tendency to want to kind of bury the bad facts. So it takes guts, and that's good to bring that up because it takes the wind out of the sails on the cross a little bit. John, and you're really well prepared. So good job on the witness prep there. Adele, in your cross, you did a really good job, and you did a good job of introducing the topics. When you're preparing cross, I think of them as chapters. So really good job on introducing, because you said, okay, now we're going to talk about thus and such. One word of caution, Adele. Be careful of your facial expressions when the other side is direct examining. As somebody off camera was giving you high signs or telling you something, and you would kind of look up and you'd get a little bit of a smirk on your face. And it's one thing to remember, when you're a trial lawyer, I consider that I'm on performance from the moment, frankly, I get in my car in the morning, because I don't want to accidentally cut someone off in traffic that's a juror, until I'm home again, or back in my office. If I'm really in trial, I don't get to go back home. So the point is, you're always being watched. So kind of be mindful of that. But really good cross-exam questions. Witness number 3. Malia, a good motion to qualify the expert. That's something that sometimes is overlooked. So you did a really fine job of being very precise in your topics. And good direct questions, really good redirect. Lily, you had a great knowledge of the facts, and you had some really solid comebacks during the cross exam. You, without being flip, you had really good comebacks, particularly on the not peer reviewed. That was the quip that I wrote down. Katie, your cross was very good. You did a real nice job of keeping your composure. There was something that you wanted to confer with your co-counsel about, and in a very composed fashion, you said, "May I please have a moment to speak with co-counsel?" That's a hard thing to have the guts to do. So really, a job well done. And both of you did a really good job on your closings. Malia, next time I'd like to see you put your notes aside. You didn't need to use your notes on your other examinations, so just throw those damn notes aside. You don't need them. You're too good for that. Really, Katie, great job of arguing in anticipation of what one of the defenses was going to be, the comparative fault, bringing that up. That's a great technique to be able to use. So sorry I went on so long, but really job well done, everybody.
All right. Thank you, Tom. In no particular order, Michael?
Hi, my name is Michael. I am a paralegal at St. Family Law. I watched the same round Tom did, so a lot of the stuff I have to say is going to track with what he did, starting with the witnesses. Again, also absolutely outstanding job across the board. You were prepared, you were fast, you were conversational, you made your teammates better, you made your competitors better. Absolutely amazing job. For the attorneys, the arguing of the evidentiary objections was fantastic. Just the substantive grasp and the poise to be able to do those concisely on your feet was fantastic. Also, the overall level of the lawyering, I agree, was probably higher on cross-examination than it was direct. And again, that's credit to all the attorneys and all the witnesses. Last thing, both closings were absolutely fantastic.
All right, Erica.
Yeah, I felt like closings were definitely a high point. It was fun to watch you guys all wrap the whole kind of stories up. And I'm sorry that I got kicked off there for a second, technological difficulties. But yeah, that was absolutely fantastic in terms of watching you guys wrap up both. It was really nice how I thought both teams really took the evidence that you presented and wrapped it up really nicely in your closing arguments. It really brought it together for everybody. I didn't hear what all the comments were, but I might be repeating some things, so I apologize. But that was really good in terms of, I think as you guys continue to get more and more comfortable with the facts, try to go off script a little bit more. I think that's kind of an overall comment I would make for everybody. In real life, your witnesses don't give you quite as beautiful of answers as your witnesses did in this case, but sometimes it's a little more organic and convincing when it's not 100% kind of, rehearsed and memorized. So definitely, if you want to kind of push it to the next level, I would say just kind of try to go a little off script. There was some witness answering before the question had even, finished up. And that is a clear indication that, it's a practiced answer and a jury would see it as such, I think. But, again, it was very impressive that you guys had those answers down so well and had practiced so hard. So really just great job all around. I think the lawyering, it's going to be fun to see you guys in a couple of years in the courtroom. And, you guys just keep at it. And really thanks for the really hard effort. It was really impressive how much work everybody put into their performance and into their presentations today. So I was really impressed.
Thank you. I only have just a couple comments. First of all, on the rebuttal closing, you had very little time, but you chose a topic and you hit that topic because you took what the defense said and then you turned it around on them, which is always the great thing about rebuttal that you get to do. So you chose one topic, you didn't have much time, but you used that time effectively. So that's great. For all the lawyers, listen to the answers. Listen to the answers that you get on direct, listen to the answers that you get on cross. I think some of you did a really good job of looping. As Tom indicated, you use the answer that you get for the next question. And sometimes you'll get a little nugget on cross where somebody gives you something and it'll trigger something because you know the facts. You've been working on this thing for 6 months. You know the facts. So if they give you something, it's okay to go off script, like Erica said, and use it. And it's a point that you want to make further down on your outline, that's okay. Just move it up. You know the facts and, don't be afraid to do that. Trust yourself. It's late. You guys have rounds tomorrow. So we'll let you go. Thank you so much. It's been a privilege to work with you guys on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you.